Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey, everybody. We're back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver. And as usual, we're here to bring you more knowledge, more lights, and more love. How are you guys doing out there? I'm doing great. We have an incredible guest today. Her name is Alyson Gannon, and she's a medium. She talks to the other side and a lot more, and we're going to find out about that in just a second. But first, I need you all to do something for me. I need you to go to Instagram because this is the 21st century. We don't have flying cars, but we have Instagram. And I need you to follow me there at midnight_on_earth. That's the address. Go there, follow me, check out what we're about. It's how it spreads. It goes into their algorithm and they put me in all these places based on how cool you are. So follow me there. We're on Spotify. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. If there's a button there that says follow, please follow us. Again, that's how we spread it more. And the most important thing is, of course, please, please, please tell a friend, because without you telling them, without you letting them know, it just takes more time for them to find out. And time's going so fast. And we need to grow this audience. All these guests, they've generously given us so much, just like Alyson is. They've generously given us this. So we've got to get it out to more people. So tell a friend, midnightonearth.com. And now that that is done, I am going to read you a bio that I have for Alyson Gannon. Alyson Gannon is an experienced and gifted medium who maintains a private practice in Southern California. Working with clients from around the world, she provides intuitive guidance on personal and business matters. Connecting clients with their departed loved ones is her passion. Alyson also enjoys teaching students how to develop their own intuitive abilities. A leading-edge spiritual entrepreneur, Alyson is the founder of the Center for Mediumship, a heart-centered facility for psychic and mediumistic development. She teaches classes including mediumship, intuition, animal communication, and brings acclaimed mediums to teach on various metaphysical topics. Alyson is also the founder of a psychic investigation group, which we're going to hear all about, where her team tunes in to unsolved cases. And a part of her life is also being a part of Psychic Portland and the Signs of Hope and Spirit. And the Center for Mediumship is a heart-centered community of spiritual leaders offering classes in psychic and mediumship development. Hello, Alyson. How are we doing today?
Hi, Jake. How are you?
I'm so glad you're here with us. There's so much we're going to learn from you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, I felt it right away. And when I first connected with what you had online, I knew you were somebody that needed to be on the podcast because I just felt it. And it turns out that feeling was correct. You got to trust your intuitive ability, right? That's something
Absolutely.
that you teach people. So I want to know everything about your life before we talk about your career. I just want to know about you as a person. You're this human being, you have this gift, but first you had to figure out what that gift was and what that even meant. So
yes,
at what point in your life did you notice that you had these intuitive gifts and it was beyond just normal everyday life, that somehow it was a little bit extra?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think as a young girl, I would be in an empty room, but I would feel the presence of others. And that was a little bit scary because I wasn't quite sure what the experience was. And so growing up, I was afraid. I was afraid to be alone. And so I always sought uh, company of my mom, my dad, my grandma. But what was happening was I was feeling the spirit world, and but I didn't understand that, and so it was just something that scared me.
So you feel
And so
like that
that's
was early on? Like, are we talking like 3 to 5,
yes,
or where are we at with that?
that was as early as I can remember
Oh,
because
wow.
I never, even though I had my own bedroom and my own bed, I never once slept by myself in my bedroom. I would always crawl in with my grandma every single night because there was no way I was going to be in that room with beings and things.
And I'm sure you tried to communicate this to your parents and grandparents, like, hey, I'm feeling this energy. Or did you just think it was part of daily life?
I really wasn't sure what it was, but fortunately, my mom, she had an affinity to psychics, and so growing up, she would take me for readings. She'd get a reading, I'd get a reading, and so that really opened the door to the metaphysical world. And when I was in high school, we went to a medium for the first time, and I had no idea what a medium was. And so, the difference between a psychic and a medium is a psychic is someone who reads your energy, tunes into your life. Whereas a medium connects with a discarnate being, so a third person in the spirit world, bringing through messages and evidence of their afterlife survival. So went to medium for the first time in high school, and she said during the reading, she said, "You know, you're a medium." And at that point, I wasn't sure about that. I just knew I was a scared child. And so then, kind of fast forward, really, I mean, I was always interested um, in in all the metaphysical topics, you know, reincarnation um, and intuition and all of that. So I always had an interest in it, but I never actually thought that I had the ability.
So,
Um,
just to, not to cut you off there, but what was it
sure.
about the feeling that that psychic had that made her say that? Did you ever try to get her to clarify or just kind of explain herself more?
It was a one-time visit, and it was just, you know, a door. She opened a door to possibility.
Ah.
And so it really wasn't until later in life when my mom was really, you know, not feeling well. She had congestive heart failure, but she was still doing okay. 2 weeks before my mom passed, my grandma came to me from the spirit world. And my grandma had been gone for a good 20, 25 years. And so this is in daytime. This is in my bedroom, um, I'm just walking toward the closet, and I'm met by my grandma, and she has a man with her who I don't recognize.
So you're in
Um,
daytime, just to back it up a little bit, because this is so exciting. So you're seeing your grandma, because this is like your first big kind of confirmation experience,
yes,
because you've had these
yeah,
feelings, but now are you, I just want to clarify, are you visibly seeing your grandmother at that point?
yes, yes.
So you're visibly
Um,
seeing her. Is she transparent, or is it as if, a person is in the room?
Yeah, more no, more like transparent and also feeling her as well. So we all carry an
Wow.
energy signature,
Right.
right? So if you're in the room and let's say somebody comes into your room and your back is towards the door, you can often feel who's entered your room just by their energy signature. And so a spirit person, you know, they maintain that energy signature or they can come back with that energy signature. And so I knew that was grandma, and I think she probably brought my grandfather, who I had never met. He passed while my mom was pregnant with me. Um,
So it
so
was
there they are.
so it was
Huh?
beyond the feeling though. You could actually see the
See them.
features of the
Yes.
face and the nose and the eyes, and it was not like a light being. Well, I mean, of course we're all light beings, but this was like a light, like almost like a shadow
It
or
was
something.
like it was like a translucent, kind of a translucent, kind of outline
Ah.
of grandma.
Wow. And then, of course, your grandfather, who you said you never met, but of course, they're
Right.
together on the other side, still loving each other, which is something we all,
Right.
we're going to all look forward to once we graduate. We're going to reconnect with our past loved ones. So she's with this person. And how did that make you feel? Were you excited to see your grandfather?
I wasn't sure. I didn't really identify him. I obviously knew my grandma,
Right.
and it happened so quickly. It's not like it. We're dissecting it right now, but it happened within seconds.
Oh, wow.
So it's already over by the time, and we're still talking about meeting her, so it was just it was very quick. It was very unexpected. And then she telepathically conveyed to me, I'm coming for your mom.
Ooh, meaning
And
that your mom is going to pass on to the other side very soon. Is that how you interpreted
right,
that?
right.
Was that a hard message for you at that point?
It was something I didn't want to believe, obviously. And so I telepathically conveyed to her, not yet. I said, um, I said, I need my mom here longer. When you get her, you're going to have her for a very long time. So please let her stay here with me.
Oh my
And so
God.
that was our conversation with one another. And poof, she was gone. And but it was my grandma's way of compassionately coming to let me know that there was nothing I could do to change the destiny of my mom's passing.
And it is affirming to know, at least with that other side coming to communicate with you, that you could see that she was going to a better place or a different place, with at least your grandmother being there, your grandfather. But I do want to ask you, when you say telepathic communication, I know it's a feeling, right? But is it an audible voice when it's at that level? Is it like an inner voice, or is it really just a feeling that you can completely interpret as language?
It can be both, but with this communication, it was more like getting a download. That's probably the best way to
Well, we talk about that in a lot of the episodes that we have with people that take psychedelics and medicinal psychedelics. They go to these spiritual places and they get what they call downloads. So it's really interesting you have that same analogy.
Mhm. And so, and it was more of a feeling and a knowing rather than an action. It wasn't she wasn't audibly saying this. They no longer have their voice box. And so it's more of a knowing, a feeling, and this kind of telepathic, exchange between us. And again, it's not uncommon for our loved ones to come and to try and warn us compassionately that someone's going to pass. On the other hand, we have all this grief and our would-haves or could-haves or should-haves because 2 weeks later, my mom was getting ready to go to an appointment, which I was going to drive her to. And I was downstairs on the phone and I'm looking at the watch and I see that we're running late. So I run upstairs and I say, Mom, we're late for the appointment. And that's when I found my mom passed out on the bathroom floor.
Oh no. Oh my God. I'm so sorry you experienced that. But in a way, do you feel like your grandmother's spirit psychically prepared you for that?
Yes, I do. I mean, it really nothing can prepare you for the death of a loved one, but she tried to. She tried to, and I think it actually helped later after getting through the shock of losing my mom. I think, later on when you start thinking of the would-haves, the could-haves, the should-haves, if I only had taken my mom maybe to a different doctor, if we tried different medicine, or if I had been upstairs, when she was first passing out, that somehow she'd still be alive with us. And so then remembering and going back to Grandma's visit, it was a reminder, no, this was her soul's decision to cross over at this time, and this had really nothing to do with you, and there's nothing that you could have done to change your mom's trajectory in transitioning.
So from there, that's your big first experience, and it's very personal for you because not only did you communicate with your grandmother, the circumstances of what she talked about was related to your mother, and then of course it all came true, which led to your mother going to the other side. But from there,
Right.
that must have been huge because everything happened in the way that was told by the spirit. So then did you start searching for more ways to communicate with the other side at that point?
Yes. So, the next day, around 5 o'clock in the morning, I was downstairs by our backyard, and I was on the computer, um, and I hear a knock at the door. And typically that would freak me out, but because we have a completely fenced in yard and nobody knocks on our back door, but I just knew it was my mom. And so I said, "Hi, Mom." And it was, I feel like it was her way of letting me know that she's around, she's okay. And then when we went to the viewing um, at the funeral home, I looked at my mom and I looked at her body and I thought, this is a shell of a body. Where did this vivacious, loving, joyful person go? And that's really what began my journey of where's my mom? Where did she go?
So then that sparked an interest in metaphysical things, and that led to you
Yes,
starting to a scholarship in a way. You're just going to learn more in that direction.
yes,
But then
absolutely.
with your natural gifts, I'm sure they both amplified each other, right? The more you learned, the better your gifts got calibrated, you
The
could say.
more, sure, the more that you use your intuitive senses, the stronger they become, the more you trust, the more confidence you have, the more validation you receive. So definitely, it's very helpful. And yeah, so it propelled me on this spiritual quest, and it really was, I called psychics and mediums, and I had a reading with Sylvia Brown even the first week my mom passed, and my friend had a connection with her, and she said, my friend said, "What can I do?" I said, "Well, I just want to see if I can connect to my mom." And so she got me the appointment with Sylvia. Um, but unfortunately, during the appointment, Sylvia said, "Well, it's too soon to connect to your mom. She's just been gone, for a couple weeks or a week." And so at that point, I didn't know whether that was true or not. But now, as a medium, that's absolutely not true. You can connect with your loved ones, you know, seconds after they pass. You can connect with your loved ones when they're in a coma, even when they have Alzheimer's or dementia. You can connect with them on as well. So
Why do you
there
think she
isn't
had
any.
that perspective? Sorry to interrupt there, but why do you think she had
Sure.
that perspective?
Just her belief system.
But she dealt
So
with all those spirits, and it seems like common sense. Like even if you're thinking of a spiritual being, it's like the second it leaves the body, it's the complete spiritual being. Like, is there? It's not like there's a 2 week processing transfer station that before you can
right,
interact with the third dimension, you got to wait 2 weeks and get some things checked off and signatures, and
right,
you
right.
know.
So I was out $800 for that session and no connection with my mom.
Oh,
So
geez.
yes. So just really, searching. And it was about 2 years later that I went on a juice fast, a 10-day juice fast. And it was at that point that I had my first, real clear communication with my mom. And my mom flooded me with feelings, um, and a message to get to someone. And it was a message for the person she had. So the day that she died, she was going to an appointment, and obviously she never made it to the appointment. And she, 2 years later, is flooding me with a message to call this lady and congratulate her. And so my mom had been friends with this lady for all of her firsts. The first time she opened her practice, the first time she got married, the first house that she bought. And so when I called her, and her name was Alexandra Powell, and when I called her, first of all, it took my mom 3 days to convince me that I was definitely going to call her, because I'm like, no, I'm not calling her and telling her I heard from a dead person. I'm not doing that. But each day my mom persisted. And so finally on the third day, I said, okay, I'll call her. And I had to go look up her number. And when I called her to congratulate her, she said, that sounds just like your mom. I'm having a baby. And there my mom was, wanting to be there for another first, and not miss it. Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely astounding. So then that hits you even harder, right? Because you're going through
Absolutely.
this juice fast. And there must be something about that physically, right? There's something that when you purge the toxins that every human being eats in our diet, and you purge these things and you do these fasts or other techniques in order to clear yourself, you're then more psychically potent. You're more powerful, you could say. And you're
you have more energy, and you have more energy that you're able to use in that communication as well.
So what does that say for people that are psychic and intuitive by nature, that they should try to lead the healthiest lifestyle they possibly could if they want to enhance their abilities?
Right.
That's
I have
interesting.
noticed, I've noticed the connection is definitely more clear when you're eating more clean.
So then, you're doing that and you connect with your mom, and now you're fired up, right? Because she calls the
Yes.
friend's pregnant. Obviously, this information is outside of the third dimension. It's outside time. Wherever your mom is, she's able to, almost like a video game. It's almost probably funny to her, right? Like, it's like, aha, I can tell you all about this pregnant person across the country that you have no idea
Right.
about. It's almost funny. But were you then fired up and you're like, okay, I'm going to develop
Yes.
this more? And how did you expand on that training? What was the next step?
Yeah, so I was like, okay, mom, bring it on. I'm ready. I can do this. So, basically, treating here in the US, there's a place called Lilydale, in upstate New York, and it's a little town of mediums. And it's been around for over 100 years.
So
And it's open.
everyone
Mhm.
there is a medium, you're saying?
So there are some people who are healers, and some people who, live there and are spiritualists, but the ones who do readings, there's, probably about 30 or 40 mediums that live there.
Wow. I wonder if our
Hmm.
listeners in New York, if they've never been there, they should definitely go.
Right. It's about an hour away from Buffalo, and it's, obviously not during COVID time, but
Yeah.
during during the summers, it opens for about 3 months. And so I began taking classes. I spent time there during the summer, and then taking classes other places. Also went over to the UK, and there is a college called the Arthur Findlay College, and that's a real life Hogwarts where they have teachers that help you develop your intuition and mediumistic abilities. And now I teach my own classes.
Wow. So you also have been doing readings, I'm sure, helping people connect with people on the other side. What are your
Right.
thoughts about these spirits? Like, how can you distinguish a spirit besides the feeling? Is there a way to determine when a spirit's in the room, or is it really just the feeling?
Sometimes you may see them. Um, so sometimes you might hear them. Uh, and or you get a feeling or a knowing. Sometimes you might smell. For example, our loved ones leave all different types of signs to let us know that they're around. And so, if you had a father who smoked a pipe, then sometimes you may smell a whiff of tobacco, and that's dad coming through, letting you know that he is right there with you. Or if you had a grandma or a grandpa with mothballs, sometimes you might get a whiff of that, or a or a special scent of perfume. I've smelled mints before, so a smoker who then constantly then puts mints in their mouth, and so that smells come through. So really, they'll utilize any and all of our senses to come through.
So, how do you determine though that it's a human spirit? Because so many people talk about angels, they talk about, if on the lower side, demons, and some people just say there's entities and they don't really put a name on it, but they say there's entities living in these other dimensions, potentially where the spirits of these dead people are. How can you tell the difference between a human and something that's non-human?
That's a really good question. My intention and my focus is only on departed loved ones. So occasionally I'll run into angels, spirit guides, um, but mainly, my compass is looking for, grandma or grandpa or uncle or brother or husband. So my GPS is not looking for, other entities out
Well,
there.
well, what happens though when an angel or spirit guide comes in? Do they try to get
Sure.
your attention, and then you're like, oh wait, that you're not what I'm looking for, but well, could you please call someone else? Or
Well,
how does that? How do you notice that?
the spirit world is, and the universe is very intelligent. And so if an angel comes in, they're coming in for a reason. Maybe they're coming in because the person has a special connection to angels. Um, or maybe they need some healing, or maybe they need a message from an angel and that resonates for them. So they'll come in
Ah.
from the spirit world however we can best take them.
Are there situations where sometimes you're looking for a deceased one, but like you said, the angel comes in, but the angel needed to come in? Or is it a time when an angel came in, but they weren't what that person needed? They needed the deceased person. Has that ever happened?
It's usually what the need is.
Okay, I see.
So,
I
and
see.
and I really, yeah, and I really, most times it's departed loved ones that will come. I would mean, for me, it's like 90, I don't know, 8% of the time it's departed loved ones. But if someone wants to connect with their angels, well, then you set your intention and you open up that way and you invite the angels to come in. And then it would be more of a reading with angels. Or if you want to connect with, if someone wants to connect with their guides, then you set your intention and focus your awareness on their spirit guides, their spirit team.
So, do you think that as humans, when we cross over to the other side, part of our existence once we're there is taking on the responsibility of guiding our family members?
It it can be. So I know that my grandmother and my mom both sit on my celestial team, along with other guides that I've never met or guides that I've maybe met in other lifetimes. So absolutely, your departed loved ones can become a spirit guide of yours.
But do you think that's kind of the modus operandi, or just like how things work over there, based on what you've,
I
intuited over the years?
Yeah, I think it just really depends on the relationship. So, obviously, if you've had a really rocky relationship with dad and there's been abuse and this and that, more than likely he's not going to be sitting on your spirit team, because you don't, you wouldn't want that. And so but that doesn't mean he's not going to try to come forward in a reading session, because he's going to want to help with the healing and, apologize. A lot of times they'll come and they're like tails between their legs, and, I got these dads hunched over, tail between the legs, and that they've done something inappropriate or wrong here in life, and they're, whether it wasn't spending enough time with their child, or, getting remarried and going off with that family, or, having an addiction or whatever, they do come back to apologize.
Right. So, because they're over there and they see the summation of whatever negative things they've done, the abuse or whatever, and they want to make amends, even on the other side.
They do.
That's really interesting. So when you're doing these readings and you're connecting with deceased loved ones and people that are on the other side, and you're doing it, I don't want to say in bulk, but, as a practice, do you ever notice themes that start to develop in the messages that the departed ones give to the clients?
Absolutely.
What are some of the themes that you've noticed, and how did you feel about it?
Well, I mean, with themes, a lot of times, they'll come in, maybe there'll be a series of people who completed suicide, and you have, 3 or 4 readings that come through that way. And so in that way, there is a theme and way of passing, or let me just think what else. You know, I'm just trying to think of a couple other examples for you.
But do you ever feel like that's like a message, like a bigger message in itself when those themes start to develop, or do you feel like it's just kind of a strange correlation?
No, I do feel like there's a bigger message, and I also feel like it's a message for the medium, so, oftentimes as well. When you get these themes, there's, we're always part of this whole equation too. So maybe there's, dads and forgiveness, and so, okay, Alyson, time to forgive somebody. So that, that could happen. I think that with spirit coming through, some of the main things they want their loved ones to know are, oftentimes, we're here and we have to make that difficult decision of pulling the plug for a loved one. And so, I have clients that wonder if they did the right thing. And time again, their loved one is like, look, I was already outside of my body. I was up in the corner of the ceiling and watching everything. There was no choice, because I was no longer, in there. And so you did do the right thing. So that's, one thing. And then another kind of theme that comes through from the spirit world is no one dies alone. So even if someone was physically alone when they died, what they're saying is that their spirit loved ones, their guides, their angels were there to greet them the second that they transitioned out of their body. And so they were already there waiting for them when this happened. And so a lot of times people worry, that someone died alone and how sad it was, but they were never alone. They were always surrounded by loving, unconditional beings.
Well, that's very comforting for people that have had loved ones that maybe passed by themselves alone. Maybe they got stuck in traffic or something and they couldn't make it to mom's passing, or there's so many situations, nursing homes, right, things like that. And it's so comforting to know that their angels, which we all have our angels, and we can talk about that. Our angels, our ancestors, those guides, they're all there right at the moment of passing. Right. And you're aware of that when you go.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Have you ever had a visual when a spirit passes? Have you ever seen light? Have you ever been around people that have passed on at the moment they died?
I have not.
Okay.
But I do have a friend who's a hospice worker, and she does that every day.
Oh, wow.
So maybe you'll want her on your show
Hey,
next.
maybe. You know, you guys are all amazing. You actually referred Natalie Lucia Anderson, who is an incredible guest. We had an incredible episode. If you're a friend of Natalie's, I'm sure you're equally as amazing, and that's why we're all together. We're all amazing people. The listeners, you, everybody out there, we're all such beautiful, wonderful people, and we have such an incredible destiny. And we're just here sharing this experience, sharing these stories with each other. Okay, so after all these, readings, connecting with the deceased, does it ever get draining where you feel like just taxed? And what kind of energy drain is it? Is it like a psychic energy drain, physical? What are your thoughts on that?
It can go either way. I mean, it can be really uplifting and energizing, and just knowing that you've provided some peace and comfort for somebody is really heart fulfilling. But of course, if like with everything, if you do too much and you don't balance your life and give yourself a break and go out into nature and breathe, then it can become taxing. But I think that's with everything too. I just wanted to also.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have some recharge techniques that you do, like going out in nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, walking in nature is very healing. Going into the ocean if you live near the ocean. If you don't live in the ocean, filling up your bathtub with Epsom salts and taking an Epsom salt bath. So those putting on a comedy, and laughing is very energetically cleansing and healing. That's why they have laughter yoga. That's a really, fun way to move that energy around.
Because you could be a new medium. Maybe you're a new medium listening to this and you're realizing that, hey, I'm feeling pretty drained after doing all these readings. Alyson's here to give you some of these techniques so you can do better. That's what we're all here. We're just teaching each other, trying to do better. And okay, so Alyson, what are your thoughts on spirit possession? Do you think that's possible? I mean, the deceased are on the other side. Can they possess people? Can other spirits possess people? What do you think about that?
It's an interesting question. I will never say never, but I'm open to all possibilities. But with that, I say that's not within my experience, and that's not within my belief system. Spirit, they don't need a body to do what they do. They're very successful in living on without the need for a human body. You'll read near-death experiences, and when they're in the spirit world, they're so happy and joyous, and then when they have to come back into their body, like, it's frustrating and they're angry, being squished back into this broken body. And so I would say my belief system is that spirit doesn't need a body. Spirit, there's just no reason for them to have a body. And they, when we connect with them, they don't come into our body. It's an energetic blending. They're blending their energy, their energetic body with my energy. And so we're just kind of, blending with each other. Or if you can imagine, those cut out paper dolls where you cut out the little doll and you kind of just put it on the outline. That would be more like how spirit and a medium connect and blend.
Interesting.
So, and I just wanted to go back to your other point about, people getting fatigued and drained. It's not, in addition to those connecting to spirit, empaths in general, who aren't even connecting to spirit, but just walking around the malls or going to parties and picking up other people's energy. That's a lot of us who are, probably a lot of your listeners are, empaths.
Oh, definitely. I feel like personally I'm empathic. I have 2 daughters that are incredibly empathic and sons as well. I mean, it seems like the natural human state is to be empathic, and you have to learn techniques to shield yourself from other
Right.
people's energy. Yes, our listeners, I feel like if you're spiritually intuitive at all, that the empathic qualities kind of come right with it.
It is. There's pros and cons with being a sensitive.
So what you were saying about the mediumship before, about how the interface is kind of like these energy fields laying on top of each other and commingling and then kind of
Hmm.
sharing information. What do you think about these other mediums then that claim that they take on the spirit and they start to audibly talk, and sometimes with a funny voice, or I'm Eleanor or something like that? Would you say, based on your experience, that that type of mediumship isn't authentic?
Okay, well, that question is really interesting. So I really don't have an opinion on trance at this point, which may be,
So that's
different
called trance
voices.
mediumship, you're saying?
Trance mediumship is a form of mediumship where different spirits will, the medium will start speaking like that spirit and maybe have some of those mannerisms. My focus is really mental mediumship, so I really don't go into, trance is just not something that, um, you know, I,
It's not
I, fo- you know,
it's not your
it's not my,
practice.
it's not my practice. Yes.
And the jury's still out for you. It sounds like the jury's still out for you. The jury's still out for me on everything. I just like to keep an open mind, and I'm not sure. Like, it may be so, maybe not. I do kind of, based on my own personal experience, tend to lean towards what you're saying, where the experience is like two energies laying on top of each other and then sharing information
Hmm.
that way. My own personal experience, I think that that's the correct kind of authentic way, but who's to say? I haven't gone into a trance. It could be that way.
Right.
We're not sure.
Right. And and I have friends too, really, trance is their way, and that's something they resonate with. And so it's just not something that I feel personally that I'm being called or drawn to do.
Right. So when you're doing these connections, have you ever had an experience where it felt scary for you, where you didn't like what the deceased person was doing, what the person was saying, and what the energy that was coming through? Like, was it ever like, where you weren't comfortable with that? Has that ever happened?
Not that I recall.
Oh, good.
Really, the spirit, the spirit world is unconditional love,
Oh,
and
wow.
um, so you may have situations where, like, I've brought a gangster through before, but he was, really a gangster in life, and so he wanted to show who he was in life. Um, but nothing, nothing harmful or scary. Just very loving
So you're
and
saying
wise,
when you connect with
intelligent.
these deceased loved ones that these clients are asking you to connect with, it's never been a negative experience, because when you're over there, it's a higher frequency of existence. It's all love. You wouldn't be over
Yes.
there if it wasn't love. So does that explain ghosts then? Are they kind of entities that haven't gone to the other side? What are your thoughts on ghosts?
Right. So, I believe that sometimes people have these quote unquote scary experiences, not because they're there to scare, but because they don't understand the experience. And so, maybe grandpa is kind of roaming around the house, and something gets knocked over, or noise is made, and that's really scary if you don't if you don't understand, like, what's going on. But it's just grandpa trying to get your attention. And once you have a medium or somebody who can connect and communicate, and explain what's going on, then it becomes a lot less scary. So, and ghosts, again, that's really not my realm
Okay.
Some people believe it's just residual energy. Other people, really believe there are ghosts. And I just work with the dead people that are loved ones and leave the rest alone.
So, have you ever had an experience then where a spirit has contacted you needing help to go to the other side, but wasn't necessarily a
That,
ghost?
that's a good question. So again, there are different theories about that. You hear these rescue circles and people who are helping a spirit go to the light. Um, for me, I don't think spirit needs the help. Um, I do think that you have this expanded consciousness, and you intuitively, you're met by your loved ones, you're met by your guides, you're met by your angels. Nobody's abandoned and lost and roaming around. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to come back and visit you, and check in on you. I feel my mom and grandma almost on a daily basis, and they just kind of flutter by like a butterfly. And I just say, "Hi, mom. Hi, grandma." And, that's how we connect and communicate.
Well, what you're saying is so comforting because you would think that the death process is a natural process full of love. You just had this, for some people, traumatic life on earth, and
Right.
you're now on the other side. Why do you need to deal with more trauma, like being stuck or having to deal with hell or anything like that? It seems like the natural state, the natural process would be this graduation into these higher frequencies. And it's very comforting to
Right.
hear you say that because there are a lot of people out there saying other things, and it seems like
Right.
mostly misinformation because it doesn't harmonize with love. All right. Infinite love
Right.
would say that what you're talking about as a post death experience would be the true situation because it's the most loving, the most comforting.
Right. And I mean, again, this has been my experience. I don't discount other people's experiences, but it just hasn't been part of my own experience.
Okay. Well, we're talking about so many beautiful things, and I just really appreciate you being here. This is so amazing. But you did bring up that you are part of a psychic investigative group. So, what is that about, and what is that called?
Sure. It's called Psychic Witness, and we tune into unsolved and cold cases. I also teach a psychic detective class called Becoming a Psychic Detective, in intuitive investigation. And we'll get cases, from families. And I'm working on a case that I just sent off to police department. And so we will tune into the missing person or the unsolved case and provide the information that comes through. I worked on a case in Canada. A young woman was missing for several weeks, and the family had no idea whether she was living or departed. And so when I tuned in, it felt like she was alive, which gave the family hope to keep searching for her. And then I also got an image clairvoyantly to check around the train stations. So there's a connection with the train stations. And so about 5 days later, that's where they started their searches. 5 days later, they found her in a train yard, about 6 stops down. And so
Was she still alive?
that yes,
Oh,
yes,
thank God.
yes, yeah, that was a success story.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing. Was that one of the first cases? And how many people are in this group?
It's a very small group, because we want to make sure that really we have an A team tuning in. So we have about 6 or 7 people, and I'll send out a case, and I'll say, here, this case that we have. Can you please tune in? And it's really interesting to see the similarities that people pick, the mediums pick up, and then also the differences as well. So
Because sometimes
yeah,
you
and
get conflicting information, you're saying?
yes, You do. I mean, everything filters through the mind of the medium. And so, that's where interpretation comes from. Uh, and yes, so sometimes motive will be different, or the number of perpetrators might be different. But we kind of, take that all into consideration and see where, yeah, some of the similarities and crossover is. And I've been working on a case, a cold case. That's been, well, it's not cold because they're still actively pursuing it, but an unsolved case that's been unsolved for about 10 years. And so we've actually had a chance to provide the police department with, um, you know, our tune-ins. And so hopefully, we do feel like it's a solvable case. So hopefully, I'll be able to talk about that more in detail, once they're able to apprehend, the perpetrators.
So when you set up this group, did you know that you were going to be working with these agencies? And do you also work with private individuals with psychic witness?
Yeah, we mainly work with families. It'll be the family that will come to us. They have no other options. And so they'll ask us to tune in.
Oh my God. Wow. So it's only after the families get you involved to then the other agencies, the police agencies, then extend their, whatever they're
Right.
offering as well. Wow. That's really interesting.
Right. And I am going to be, yeah, no, I am going to be teaching a psychic investigation course in April. So it'll be on my website
Oh,
pretty soon. Yeah, and it's quite a fascinating course, even if you're not interested in, unsolved cases. We go over missing persons and pets um, and a whole bunch of interesting techniques and tools and exercises.
so do you have any other success stories that you'd like to share with the audience where you were contracted to find someone and they were found?
Unfortunately, most of the cases they're already departed and it's an unsolved like whodunit
Oh,
case.
wow.
Yeah. There was one case where it was a missing girl. Her father reached out to me, and she was missing for a good 4 or 5 months. And it turned out she ran away. And it was interesting because I sent it off to our team, and when somebody is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, they're in a different state of consciousness, and sometimes it's hard to tell, which side of life they're on. And so our team was really split 50-50, but she turned out to be alive, and she called her dad and they reunited. And so that was a happy story.
Oh, well, I guess the circumstances are mostly kind of grievous when these people are looking for their murdered loved ones. But yes, it's good to hear another success story where the person was still alive. Did the streams ever cross where, you're contracted to look where the deceased person is, and then the spirit of the deceased person kind of comes through to kind of talk to you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we'll connect in with the departed person, we'll connect in psychically. And so dreams, sometimes they'll come in. Last night I had, a really riveting dream that I feel is connected to this one case I'm working on. And so they'll come through in dreams. And a lot of times they'll do that because they want to bring peace to their family. It's not like they want to get revenge on the person who killed them, but they see how much their family is suffering and how their family's not living life to their fullest. And so they want to help bring closure, so their family can continue.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So is it expensive, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, is it expensive to do this? Do you guys do it volunteer, or is it like a flat rate? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's it's both. It's sometimes when people don't have the funds, we will take it on a pro bono basis. Other times it's a flat fee and it's not that expensive. It's just a flat fee because we're taking our
Oh, of
time and our
course.
energy.
Yes, I mean
Yeah.
we all should be reciprocated for the energy that we put out. That's how this world works. I mean, but it's amazing that you're doing it though, and because there are people out there that just don't have the means that could use that help, and they could contact you maybe about that. But you also have this incredible book. On top of everything else, you're a part of this incredible book. And tell me the origins of this book. This book is called The Last Breath: True Stories of
Yes.
Mediumship, the Afterlife, and Messages from Heaven. First, let's talk about the origins of this book, because it's not just from you. You said it was from a collection of 48 mediums. Is that correct?
Right. So 48 mediums from around the world. We each write a story about the afterlife. Some people write about their near-death experience. Some people have written a story about meeting their guide. My story is about my mother, and I have an exercise in there on how you can connect with your loved ones. And that's in chapter 10 is my story.
Oh, wow.
Natalie's story is in there. Um, there's a story of signs. There's a couple stories about getting signs from their loved ones. There's a story where the medium actually stopped a random person and gave them a message from their departed wife because that person the husband was contemplating ending his life,
Oh, my
and she
God.
just had this feeling that she needed to stop and talk to this man who was standing outside of I think it was like a CVS or Walgreens. And that really changed the trajectory of his life. There's stories of um, families losing their children. I have one of my friends lost her son, and she talks about the signs that she gets from her son who passed away a couple years ago. Um, so there's all sorts of wonderful stories in this book, and there's something for everyone. What's nice is that you can read a story at a time, and they're just kind of like Reader's Digest version um, of a metaphysical topic.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully everyone gets something out of it.
Well, it looks really appealing, and we'll talk about it a little bit more at the end of the show. But I just want to ask you a few more questions. We're creeping up on the hour mark. We usually go about an hour and 15, hour and a half, whatever you're feeling. But I want to get some more information out of you because everything you've shared with us has been so powerful and really amazing and actually really
Uh-huh.
enlightening because a lot of it I haven't actually heard before. So I want to ask
Uh-huh.
you, dealing with these spirits, do you have a clear picture of whether there is a spiritual heaven or hell? Because so many cultures around the world are very fixated on the fact that once you pass on based on your behavior, your conduct, various things depending on your religion actually, and some things you can make up for depending on your religion, but they have these afterlife experiences where you go to this extremely positive place or this extremely negative place. And what are your thoughts about heaven and hell based on what you've experienced?
So my experience is the spirit world has no judgment, and it's us who judge ourselves. And so we may put ourselves in our own personal hell, um, but basically our loved ones in spirit, they do not judge us. I don't believe the universe or God or life force, whatever you want to call that supreme intelligence. There's no judgment. It is unconditional love. And I know a lot of times spirit will come through, and this is another kind of universal message that spirit comes through with, where um, the the client will come to me and is my dad mad at me? Is my mom mad at me? And of course they're not mad at you. They love you and they understand you, and they probably can they probably know you better than you know yourself, because they're able to see all aspects and angles. And so um, nobody's mad in the spirit world. Nobody's mad at anybody here. It's really love and acceptance and forgiveness.
So why do religions have these kind of mechanisms in place? Is it really just about control? Because you're a medium, you're connecting with these spirits, and none of them have told you that they just got back from hell. And actually, they're really glad they're talking to you because they're in hell and there's nobody to talk to down there. You've never got those messages. So doesn't that really contradict most religions at this point?
Well, my experience has, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist on some level of existence. I also want to say, because you're bringing up hell, I didn't say that I have a publishing company, and it's called Franklin Rose. And I published a book by a lady who had a near-death experience, and in her experience, she did go to hell. And it's called Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. And she was on a ventilator, much like the COVID patients of these days. She was on a ventilator for 3 weeks and in a coma. And it talks about her whole story of being in hell and how to get out of hell. And so, that would be maybe another person to
Hey,
talk to.
I've been wanting to do a near-death experience episode. You'll have to refer me. Actually, that actually sounds amazing. But so then you don't want to invalidate her experience, right? Because it's very real to her. She went to hell. She feel like she went to hell. But is it then some sort of like spiritual construct that because of our guilt, because of our anger at our choices, that we create this reality called hell around us in that moment to punish ourselves? What about that?
Again, it hasn't been my experience. It's like in my realm, there is no hell.
Yeah.
I'm not going there. There is no place to go. I'm going where my mom and my grandma are, and and maybe it's also like you are what you believe. So for my father, he's a medical doctor. He's very scientifically oriented, and so if he can't touch it, test it, or see it, it doesn't exist. And so, for him, when he dies, he feels like it's going to be lights out 6 feet under. And I can just envision him down there in the hole, just kind of hanging out and be like, "Hi, Dad, how's it going down there?" So
wondering when he's going to leave. He's like, "Well, I'm waiting for the light. I thought I was, I'm still here."
He might need one of those rescue circles.
There you go. Hey, we were talking about that earlier. That could be a thing. So we talked about empaths. We talked about being a medium, but you also consider yourself an empath, right?
Yes.
So what are some techniques as an empath that you recommend to people for shielding? Because there's so much energy going on right now. There's so many people. There's humanity. We're all so powerful. And in a lot of ways, we're reawakening to our potential. We're understanding more and more. This podcast is an expression of that, but that's happening all over the world. Millions and millions of people are growing and doing better. And there's all this energy. Some people are jealous. Some people are happy. And it all pulls on the empath. So what are some of the shields that these empaths can do? What are some of these techniques?
One is visualization techniques. So you can visualize a mirror going all around you, up and down, and just totally, surrounding you. And any negative energy or any energy that isn't yours bounces off this mirror and goes back to its original source. So it never, ever penetrates into your energy field. So that's one technique. Another one is to put a bubble of love around you. You can choose whatever color you want. Maybe it's a pink, loving bubble that surrounds you. And again, only positive energy can come through, and anything that's negative or angry or doesn't serve your highest purpose, it just kind of bounces lightly off your bubble of love and goes back to where it came from. So those are a couple visualization techniques. You can also set your intention before you go into, where empaths have problems are in crowded areas, going into malls or parties or stadiums, where there's lots of different energy flying this way or that, or going into work where you have an angry coworker and you are all fine, but all of a sudden you've got someone's headache. So empaths, very much take on other people's energy, and that it negatively affects them. It makes them tired. It makes them irritable, and it's not theirs. And so we talked about the techniques and intention, and that just even setting your intention before you go into a place where, you might get bombarded with energy. Set the intention that whatever energy is not mine will not affect me. So you could even just say a little mantra too, just before you go into a place, and just use your intention. And boundaries are really important because it's self-preservation, preserving your energy so that it's not a going out to places that you don't want it to leak out to, and you're not taking on someone else's energy either. It's enough just taking care of yourself.
Right. It's really important for people to take care of yourselves as it is, and being empathic and taking on other people's toxic energy. It can be draining. It can be detrimental to your physical health, even though it's this energetic experience. Another question I have about your mediumship: have you ever had deceased loved ones or spirits give you messages about what life is like on the other side? Like, or any messages directly about that dimension specifically?
So most of the times it's in a session with a client, and most of the times they're doing something over in the spirit world that they enjoyed doing over here. So if they enjoyed, planting flowers there, they say, I'm planting my garden over here. And I'm sure they're doing other things in addition to that. I'm sure that there are things beyond our comprehension, beyond what our human brain can even fathom, that those in spirit are doing. Some say, like, I have a friend who passed violently. He was beaten up, and he was young, and passed. And so for him, he helps other souls who have died in violent matters, and kind of, getting back and used to the spirit world. So that's one of the things that he says he does.
So have there ever been a message, though, that was kind of for the people that were still alive? Maybe not necessarily for the individual person, but maybe a message like, not just like, okay, tell my son that I love them, but tell humanity that they have to make this certain thing happen by this certain time, or something to that effect, if you know what I mean.
Right. So when doing private mediumship readings, that doesn't come through. It's really messages for the people here. But if someone's doing inspirational speaking or trance, and it's in front of a large group, that's when those kind of humanitarian messages come through.
Interesting. Okay. So I was just curious, because I thought maybe they were like, well, while we're here, the angels want you to know that this or this is going to happen.
Well, I mean, our loved ones come through and they do want to guide us. They do give us specific messages, but it hasn't been my experience where they come through and give like, universal, a universal message.
I just had to check. But Alyson, I'm so thankful that you've been on this podcast. I really appreciate it. if people want to learn more about what Alyson's about, you can go to spiritcommunication.com, spiritcommunication.com, and she has psychic readings that you can do with her, direct readings, 30-minute, 60-minute readings. There's also classes that Alyson teaches, and of course, that incredible book. And there's the psychic investigations class that's coming up in April. If you're interested in any of those things, which I'm sure you are, if you listen to this podcast, it's been an incredible podcast. If you've been engrossed by what we've been talking about, go to these places, check these things out, check out Alyson. Alyson, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake. It was wonderful. And thank you for all that you do. You know, you're really making a difference in this world.
And so are you. And so are all of us, because that's kind of our role. We're leaders, we're teachers, we're putting out this positive energy in order to make the world a better place. I believe humanity is moving towards a heaven on earth, conflict-free scenario where we're all there with the technology, the spirituality, all of us together united. We just have to get there. And this is part of the process. That's kind of what I believe.
Absolutely.
But hold on the line, and I'm going to hit the outro music, and I'm going to keep talking to you. And everybody, we'll see you next week. Midnight on Earth, y'all.